He's back. That's NonDoc I'm talking about. Plus, Aaron Brilbeck. It's Mitchell Talks, the News 9 sessions. They're all back. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Who's they? They is Aaron Brilbeck. And look, we have Tracy.
Who's the guy with the long hair?
Yeah.
Polo tie.
Yeah. Hey, I really enjoyed those Nissan commercials you were doing.
Thanks.
Those are awesome. Did you see the Nissan
commercials?
commercials? He's got a doppelganger that does Nissan commercials. I've sent you pictures of it.
Really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, everybody has a doppelganger.
I haven't seen that. I've got one too. There's a sheriff's deputy someplace in the state. I've never met the guy yet, but apparently he looks just like me.
Okay.
People confuse me with that guy all the time.
Yeah. And I got a doppelganger too, and both of those guys have problems. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the return of NonDoc. I want to say this sincerely. There are about 7 or 8 reporters I think do a really great job at the state capitol. I'm sitting with 2 of them, okay? So we've increased your coverage at the legislature this past couple of years has been awesome, especially on Twitter where people, after 10 o'clock, right, 10:30, the place goes to bed. But NonDoc did a great job this last year. You had to suspend for a while, but this last week's announcement, NonDoc's coming back.
Yeah, so thanks, Scott and Aaron. NonDoc.com started in September 2015, and we've always kind of been a shoestring operation, independent media company focused largely on the state capitol over the last couple of years. And we kind of tried to reformat operations and figure out what the financial path forward would be. Kind of took December off to do that. And thanks to several advertisers who kind of came in and made large commitments, and then some fundraising from the public. The public will be our largest financial backer, if you will, which is always great to think because that's who we're there to serve. We relaunch on Monday.
And you guys broke a bunch of big stories even last session.
Yeah, I think that's true. Probably the Board of Pharmacy situation with the director there having some odd text messages still being investigated. That was
understatement.
Yeah, well, it's on. If we're on video, I try to be understated. But you and I sit next to each other in the broadcast press room. Really enjoy that. I've always enjoyed working with you. I remember some times where it works out well. Since we're a web publication, I might hear about something and we can go kind of work it together a little bit because it may benefit you in the afternoon as well as me trying to get a story up online. So I try to focus on telling the correct narrative. Sometimes in the state capitol, things get warped. It's easy to overstate something or understate something. It's easy to say this bill passed and when really it advanced. And the difference between that language, it implies completely different things to the public who might read something. If they hear something passed, it sounds like it became law. If they hear it advanced out of committee, well, that sounds like there's other things that it has to do. So that's a tiny example, but we really try to be fair. NonDoc stands for non-doctrine or non-doctrinaire, and that's kind of the intentional reputation we've tried to build.
And where did that name come from?
Sitting around looking for what was available on GoDaddy. I think we landed nondoctrine.com and then ultimately I think bought NonDoc from a pet company in California. So that was sort of the shortened version. A lot of people, it seems like it means no doctors, but we actually have a doctor who's a co-owner of the company. So it's
got to change the name.
Yeah, right. We'll get right on that before session starts on February 4th.
What does a filter, not a funnel, mean?
Yeah, that's actually a phrase that I kind of came up with in college doing journalism. I'd worked at the Norman Transcript right out of high school. In college, then was the editor of the OU paper. The OU Daily does a great job down there. The Gaylord College for Journalism and Mass Communications has actually been a big supporter of ours, and we've got 3 interns who will be announcing next week from the Gaylord College. That's going to be really helpful. But I came up with that idea that journalists should be a filter, not a funnel. We shouldn't just take a press release and stick that right on the front page of the paper or on our website or put it right into the newscast. You need to discern what's relevant, what's most important, ask tough questions, and kind of filter out the important parts and focus on what you believe in your best news judgment is what the public needs to know, but also what they want to know, and that's a balance that's tough. So that was kind of a slogan that we came up with early on.
Can I ask you guys a couple of questions about coverage?
Sure.
We may have seen the two worst primetime political speeches in my lifetime this week. First off, the president's people who really, these guys out here can help you next time light yourself and focus the camera. And then the Chuck and Nancy show, which was equally bad.
Nobody was creepy,
it was
man.
Just creepy. It's unbelievably bad.
You know what they looked like? They looked like, remember that time when you were in high school and you went out with your friends and you stayed out a little bit too late, you might have had a couple of beers and you walked back in again and your parents were standing there?
Mom sees this.
That's exactly what they looked like.
It was awesome. Awful.
Exactly. American Gothic, too. They look like American Gothic.
It's Lindsay High School, by the way, which you were down at yesterday. All right, so as we tape today, this is the 30th anniversary of Reagan's going away speech, okay? And so when I bring this back to the state, these people at Washington can't persuade. They just don't have the skills to persuade people anymore. And I'm wondering, as you get ready to, and you just mentioned it, these stories that start popping out early in the year, which have no chance of the media, and these are people sitting in, they see a bill that's introduced, they start reporting on it, which is just, should be a filter, not a funnel, okay? Some of the stuff it's not going to happen. Do you see in this new crop of leadership persuaders, people naturally talented at persuading? Because that hasn't happened in a really long time.
You mean at the state level?
At the state level.
I don't know. You know, we're going to see the inauguration of Governor Stitt, and I think what I've heard a lot of people say, and I really do believe this as well, Senator Greg Treat, the pro tem of the Senate, said that he knows what he doesn't know. And I think that's an important situation, especially as an outsider. You know, a lot of people want an outsider right now in government, but maybe the worst thing that could happen is that an outsider came in and pretended like he knew everything, right? You wouldn't do that running a business any more than you should do that running a government or an institution or something like that. So I don't know to what extent he's going to come out on Monday and attempt to be incredibly persuasive, especially considering the long track record of the legislature not paying two hoots about what the governor wants to do in his or her budget. So I don't know that he's going to come out and try to make big persuasive action. I think he probably, I would guess, is going to kind of, you know, be more reasoned, more measured, and, you know, hold his water a little bit. I was sitting with some guys last night, and there was a discussion of when you're in politics, especially in the legislature, you only get so many chips. Right, so you got to figure out how to play them. And I would think that Governor Stitt is sharp enough to think that himself, and that he's not going to come out swinging Monday for the fences.
I agree. I don't think you're going to see anything new that comes out of his speech. I think it's going to be a whole lot of rah, 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 go us. You're going to hear, the drinking game is going to be how many times you hear top 10 state, you got to do a shot. That's going to be heard a lot during his speech, guarantee it. There's not going to be, I don't imagine, a whole lot of substance. We're not going to learn a whole lot. But he's going to be talking about how he wants to make us a top 10 state in fill in the blank, education, criminal justice reform, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of specifics.
Is the legislature and executive branch a little more media savvy than the past few years, which they weren't? And especially this administration's outgoing, that was a strained relationship with the press. There's no doubt about that. My question is, do you think that the houses of the legislature, they see what's happening with social media? You are a Twitter guy, okay? I mean, I'm able to watch almost in real time what's going on because you post so much.
I don't think I would have, if you had gone back in time in 10 years and you'd said that, I would have been like, I'm not on Twitter. But it's sort of the medium of choice, I think, for a lot of news, and especially covering the legislature. But I don't know. You know, I think Representative Eccles is pretty savvy with media. I think certainly he's had to take some of his lumps, because I think at the end of the day he wants to be honest with everybody and wants to be, or at least he wants to appear like he's willing to give information because he doesn't have anything to hide. And I think as an ethos, that's probably a positive quality for him, but I think that can also get you in trouble. I remember when I did PR in an electoral sense a long time ago, one of the hardest things for me was to not just give the most accurate answer I could all the time. And that's a tough thing when you're in politics or when you're PR. You may want to provide the most accurate information, the most accurate statement, but sometimes if you do that, that could derail backroom negotiations or whatever that message would be. In the Senate, I think Greg Treat's weekly press briefings are pretty good. He's pretty informative. He can get down in the weeds sometimes, which I think is valuable for us. And he doesn't really seem gaffe prone to me or anything like that. I think the interesting thing is going to be for Democrats. John Sparks was pretty sharp, working as the minority leader in the Senate, and obviously Scott Inman, who, for the better part of even last year when he wasn't technically the leader, wink, wink, nod, nod. He was pretty compelling on camera. He was a fast talker. I deleted, at one point I deleted something like 20 gigs of Scott Inman interviews from my computer, right? So, I think Leader Virgin, the new House Minority Leader, is very savvy, but I don't think she loves doing a lot of media persuasion, maybe with the same gusto that former Leader Inman did.
I agree with you 100%. I think Leader Virgin, she is careful. She doesn't want to say the wrong things. And I think Inman was calculated in his speeches, but he was also when you look back at the best speakers of the legislature, he's definitely in the top 5, probably in the top 2. The guy was just amazing. He was a great speaker, and we're going to lose a lot of that with him being gone. I think Emily Virgin will do a good job, but I don't think you're going to see the same kind of fiery speeches that you saw from Inman.
And on the other hand, you could argue that 2 years of fiery speeches from Scott Inman lost the caucus seats. I mean, I don't mean that that's why they lost seats, but they didn't go out and convince rural Oklahoma to vote Democrat. So I don't know that. I think that Leader Virgin has a lot of thoughtful opportunity ahead of her to figure out how do you better communicate in a way that maybe all areas of the state are more receptive to the Democrats' message. Quickly, on the Senate side, Senator Floyd is my senator personally, one of the most thoughtful members up there, as an attorney, and we have a dearth of attorneys, especially in the Senate. But I don't know, again, I don't know that this kind of setting is where she's really her most comfortable. Probably will do very well over time, but I think there'll be a bit of a learning curve in terms of doing press conferences and having that response to anything that's going on from Republican leadership. I want to say this, and some people might not agree with that as a journalist, but everybody I named, I respect. It's popular sometimes right now to say nothing but criticism of people who are in elected office. But whether it's Representative Eccles, whether it's Senator Treat, whether it's Representative Virgin, whether it's Senator Floyd, each of them is up there to try to do well for the state of Oklahoma. It's not even a question.
Now that said, too, I would like to see Speaker McCall get in front of the cameras more and answer more questions.
Yeah, and I shouldn't leave him out of that discussion. I think if we're talking about media and messaging, he certainly delegates that, and I think Representative Eccles is a more natural fit, as obviously on your show, than that. It is, Speaker McCall has other strengths, and I think that you heard talked about on Organizational Day the fact that his wife was dealing with cancer during the teacher walkout and all those sorts of things, and he really kept a lot of it to himself and really kind of kept his head down and to do the work that he needed to do. He's not a flashy kind of guy. I think he dresses well, and he drives a nice car. But he's. I don't know that he's out there for the glory of himself. And I think he's a banker. I think that's there's not a lot of bankers who are just fantastic in front of the camera when you put them up there to explain things.
He's a get the job done kind of guy.
Right.
It was interesting, the speech that he gave. What surprised me most about it was
on Organization Day.
On Organization Day this past week, what surprised me most was what he laid out as being his #1 priority, which is more funding for schools. I didn't see that coming. I thought that it would have been criminal justice reform. We talked about that. His number one priority, more money towards schools, and he mentioned specifically giving teachers pay increases.
First and foremost is to continue our investment in public education. We have made great progress over the past year, increasing teacher pay and funding for our schools, but our work is not done. We must continue to invest, increase teacher pay, and make Oklahoma school children the top priority. My goal is to make Oklahoma's teachers first in the region for pay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the old playbook of take your opponent's talking points and make them yours, you know, and I think if you look at the history of Republican leadership in the House over the last decade or so, you know, decade and a half, I think that's a common theme, you know, and so there's going to be pressure for that issue. I don't know that the threat of a walkout again is as imminent or as palatable, because you got to keep in mind these were folks who got, you know, an aggregate $6,000 raise, you know, this past year. So I don't know that the public would have the same commitment to walking out and shutting down schools again and disrupting, you know, a lot of the educational experience this session. You never know. But that said, I think if you look at the results of the elections in the, especially in the Republican primary and runoff, voters wanted people who were seriously going to put the state in better financial footing and support education. And so we've already heard OEA come out and make its request for, again, part of their 3-year plan, which includes more teacher pay, which includes more money for the classroom, some other things involved. I think COLA is cost of living adjustments for pensioners across the system, whether it's educators or police or fire or anybody. I think that's going to be an issue kind of in the background this session, because that's a big deal too. You know, last year I think there was a stipend given of a couple $100. Well, that's not really, that's not a cost of living adjustment for retirees in the state. So I think if you're Speaker McCall, if you're Representative Eccles, if you're anybody in the Republican caucus, it doesn't make sense to come out and dig your feet in the ground and say, well, I don't know, we may not, I don't think we're going to, you know, necessarily do that. Don't get too ahead of ourselves here. I think you come out and you say, we're committed to this. And if you remember, the last 2 years, the Republican talking points were, we're committed to an education pay raise. We're committed to the 1, 2, 3 plan that Representative Michael Rogers had. You know, they were committed to that. They couldn't get the votes out of their own caucus. They couldn't get 76 votes to pass one of the one of the less robust tax packages that they wanted. And but their messaging the whole time was always, we're supporting a teacher pay raise.
I thought this was interesting too. He had made a comment during the speech where he talked about giving parents more control. And take a look at this real quick.
At the same time, we must put parents back in charge of their children's education and give underprivileged families more options and more opportunity to thrive.
When I saw that, I read into that as being, are we talking vouchers here? There are no voucher bills that are currently up, but I read that as, are we talking vouchers? I talked with McCall's spokesperson. He says, no, he just meant generally, but man, that sounded voucher-like to me.
All I can say is that I know there are other people who are also questioning what that really is going to look like, what that's going to mean, and I don't know. I haven't asked anybody about it. I've been trying to onboard new people and do all that this week. While
Slacker.
I know, right? So, but you know, that's an interesting discussion because you have certainly it sounds silly, but the Facebook group, Oklahoma Parents and Educators or Teachers for Education, or whatever the name of the Facebook group
Angela
is.
Clark Little's group.
Angela Clark Little's group, and and there's other people as well, certainly. But they've been pretty supportive of various members of the Republican leadership. Certainly, Representative Eccles, Representative Kennedy. So, I don't, and that group is pretty anti-vouchers largely, and maybe we need to clarify vouchers. That would be I want to send my children to private school, so I get a voucher of tax dollars back from the government that allows me to help subsidize my private school tuition for my child. And while that seems fair, potentially the argument against it is that it's a fast way to gut money out of the classroom of public schools where the majority of students attend.
Well, it's going to be fun because when he's like you said, kind of taking everybody's surprise what the speaker said about this, about how that goes. So game on next week. We're tickled to death that NonDoc is back.
Thank you.
I mean, it was a real blow to journalism whenever that announcement came out a couple of months ago where you said, hey, we got to suspend for a while. That was when you're sitting at watching NonDoc debates. It was interesting to see old legacy media sitting in front row of your debates during this last election.
I enjoyed that, and I would be remiss not to thank Aaron and News 9 for helping us throughout that debate season. We did 7 or 8 of them. Yeah. Aaron was involved in every one of them. We were able to put together the only 5th Congressional District debate, and I think thanks to News 9 streaming that online, I think it was viewed like 22,000 times before the election.
And I think that probably had a say in how the election turned out, quite honestly.
I don't know whether it had a say, but certainly if it's an election decided by 1,500 people and 22,000 people watched that debate, I think it showed how much people want to see their political leaders in front of the public, not behind a camera, not on Facebook. They want to see them answering honest questions, fair questions from media who are there to get answers for the public, and that's what you do.
But honestly, I think there was a lot of folks, they'd never seen Kendra Horn speak publicly before, and got a good feeling for what her thoughts were, her ideas were. She didn't pull any punches.
I think you could make the argument there were a lot of folks you'd never seen Congressman Russell speak in public before either. So
I never will again.
He used to be a public speaker, traveled the country for that, so maybe they will. So you never know. But I appreciate both of them doing the debate, and appreciate you and your help for it. Scott, all your help promoting. And if I can do anything for you gentlemen, don't hesitate to ask.
Come back again.
I will be here.
Terry Savage, NonDoc, Aaron Brilbeck. Thanks for watching Mitchell Talks, the News 9 Stations. Game on next week. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.